welcome to IQ Live. Sarah and Paul here today. Happy Thursday morning. We are here to talk about the 228, the beautiful Cyclone. And we have had a lot of feedback, a lot of people, Tile fam, if you are in Tile Geeks, you definitely saw a super fun comment that was posted yesterday. And I figured, what perfect timing for us to discuss some of the feedback and some of the stuff we've had about the tile saw for the last couple months, right?
Yeah, so it's been out, it kind of came out like March, April time. So a lot of them are out there. People are using them, and we're getting some feedback. We're getting people asking questions on what little issues that they have. And so we thought we would kind of revisit the quick tips and tricks for the IQ 228 Cyclone.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and just dive on into it. Actually, little housekeeping, let me rewind. If you guys have new comments, new questions, any feedback, please go ahead and type it into the chat, and then we can go ahead and address that question right here live, because your question might help another contractor. So you have me and you have Paul here at your disposal for the next 30 minutes, and we're happy to help you with anything that we can. So, okay. Back to the saw.
Yeah.
If you want to start off a little bit about the 228 and kind of, the pros and cons and kind of why somebody would cut dry.
Yeah, let's start at the very beginning in case there's some of you out there that don't know what the 228, but this is a tile saw. It is a dry cutting tile saw, so there is no water. It eliminates water from your tile cutting operation. The value of that is now you can take the tile saw and put it very close to where you're working in areas where you couldn't set up a wet tile saw previously. So that's where you really get the efficiency, is setting the saw close up to where you're working. And then setup is just very easy. Transport, it weighs 36 pounds, easy to transport. Your cleanup is simply right here.
That's awesome.
In that tray, that's your cleanup at the end of the day. So very easy to clean and maintain. So
I'm not looking to dump water.
No water. You don't have to find water. You don't have to figure out where to dump water. So, for example, a classic great example would be, let's say you're doing work in a high rise or in a condominium. Take the thing up to whatever floor you're working on. You're making your cuts, eliminated the water, eliminated, the mess, and you're working fast.
Yeah. Definitely good feedback, especially when you have somebody posted last night, actually on that comment I was talking about, that it's really good for apprentices or somebody that's newer in the trade, that they're spending more time actually learning how to do the job versus the cleanup. So there's efficiency there where you're growing your crew a lot faster.
Yep, very good point. And also, so just a little bit of background, you guys might be familiar with the IQ 244, which is our first dry cut tile saw that's been on the market, coming up on 5 years now. And that was a real mind shift for you guys, because it was all about cutting dry, and you guys didn't think that was possible. People using the 244 love it, and it's, usually the only saw that they use. So dry cutting is a very good way to save time on your job sites. And that's a very professional tool, high precision. But what we wanted to do is take the technology we've learned on all of our machines and put it into as small a package as possible. So we have the Cyclones, we have our spin filter in here. It weighs, like I said, 36 pounds. And the price point is $649. So that's the other thing, is really make a saw that more entry-level guys could step up and have the advantages of dry cutting. So
yeah, definitely. And again, just to send the point home there is a difference. These two machines.
Definitely a difference. That's a much more precision machine. We say professional, but you can get professional results with this machine. But, with this table and this size, you're not going to have the same results as the 244, just like you wouldn't with a nice table saw, cutting table saw, as you would with a little bench top saw. So there's definitely differences, and there's advantages to each one. So.
Both, definitely. Okay, so now that we've kind of touched on the basics, can we jump to the box and let's do a quick unboxing, because we have had questions from contractors who can't find things when they're in the box.
Okay, so let's go into the box and make sure we can find everything.
And might I add that box is beautifully designed. Thank you. I have to throw that in there every chance I get.
Little Sarah plug there for herself. Little pat on her own little back.
Yep.
So you'll see, you open up the box. We have the diamond blade. you notice there is this little bushing in the diamond blade here down in the corner. That is only if you want to take this 7-inch diamond blade and run it on some of your other 7-inch saws. You can do that. You put the bushing in the Q drive hole, you can run it. For our machines, you do not run the bushing.
No.
Our drive is just like that. It's the Q drive, and that's what you do. So that's bushing. Just save it in case you want to use this blade on one of your other saws if you need that. So.
And which blade is that?
This is the combo blade.
Okay, just want to make sure.
That's the blade that comes with it, the combination blade, and it's good for cutting, just a combination of things, a variety of things. And we do have the hard material blade, which is actually this one right here. We'll go ahead and talk about blades. That's your hard material blade, and that's really for cutting porcelain and granite. When you got a job that you're going to be doing a bunch of hard porcelain, I would step up and get that hard material blade. Otherwise, the combination blade does a great job for you as well. So
definitely. I'm going to take this one out of your way for you.
All right. So we have, of course, the manual. We also have, very important, if you don't read anything else, because I know, guys and some gals out there don't like reading manuals, read the quick tips and tricks, because these are kind of 5 things that you really need to know about the saw to make sure you have a successful beginning. And we'll kind of go through these items as we look at the saw closer. And then, of course, you have your manual. Mm-hmm. There's your full manual, and this tells you how to, assemble the machine. There's just very little assembly required, how you maintain it, how you change the filter. So
I think the most important part is just how to square the machine up. That is in your manual, so definitely give that a read.
Yep. And then right here we have our dust guard that you have to mount, but it comes just like that. And you'll find the screws to mount that in. So you have the dust guard or blade guard. It's kind of a combination. We'll take this out. Now you have the whole machine. We'll probably set this right over here.
Way.
There's the machine, but let's look back down in the box because there's some important goodies still in here. So you look down in here, you have your tile dressing stone. Very, very important. We'll talk more about that, but this is very important for dressing the blade, especially while you're dry cutting, to keep the blade sharp and your diamonds exposed, and so you have a nice cut. And then right here, one more box. Pull that out. That is your micro fence.
I cannot stress how many times we have gotten calls that people can't find it. Do not throw it away.
Yeah, it is in a white box against the styrofoam, white styrofoam. So, but this is your micro fence. Yeah, do not lose this, because this thing, once you start using it, you're going to love this thing. So, and that's everything in your box. So once you follow the directions, you put everything together.
Ta-da, you have a tile saw.
You have a little tile saw here, the IQ 228 Cyclone. So let's get into the quick tips and tricks.
So I'm just going to go for it. The number one issue or feedback or question that we get constantly is how come it's breaking off or chipping that last corner when I'm cutting? Like, what is causing that, and how do I fix it?
Okay, well, let's try to replicate some of that, and let's go over to our close-up camera here and see if we can replicate and do some blowouts or some chipping on the back side here. So let's see. Let's turn it on. Are we on that camera? Very good. Okay. So before I make a bunch of noise here, what we're going to be looking at is right here. And it's typical with wet saws or dry saws that you have to slow down right at the end and make sure you're not cracking, because you just cut all the way through here and you're at the last maybe quarter inch or so, and it's going to want to break off. So you just have to, and I'll try to get it to break off here so we can see what it looks like. So if we can see, we have a chip. We have a little break off there. So you can see that.
A little bit lower. There
A
you
little bit lower. Can everybody see that little chip
perfect.
and that little break out there? So, and I didn't do anything. I just kind of pushed the pressure all the way through. So there's a couple of things that we can do to mitigate that problem. Let me go through. One is when you get to the end of the cut, you want to slow way down. And then you also want to put some pressure right here and support that. So you're pushing that piece kind of back in and supporting it so that you can finish the cut and slow down. So the combination of those two things will help that a lot. How bad it chips really depends on the type of tile you're working with. For example, things that are more delicate or more brittle have a tendency to chip more than even porcelain or ceramics. So it really kind of depends on what you're cutting. So let's try to make another cut here, and I'll do a kind of a thin piece because they have a tendency to chip more than larger pieces. You see how it slowed down and I'm right at the end. So I got just a little bit of blowout there. So the technique is slowing down, right down at the end of the cut, slow down just a little bit and putting a little bit of pressure here, and that will significantly reduce the chances of breakout. So, and that's a technique to use, even on wet cutting saws, use it on the 244 and everything. So
if I'm doing this, what are some of the reasons besides just the pressure that could cause that?
Yeah, and if you're really struggling, you're following those types of techniques. You also can look at your table and the alignment on the table, because if the table is not squared up with the blade well, then it might need to be realigned, and that's just something we'll do another video on to show you how to quickly align the table, and that'll help keep everything square. And that way, you're not putting undue pressure on the end of the cut there. So that's another thing that can help. But if you usually, these are squared up from the factory, so they should be nice and parallel to the blade. Using that technique should, pretty much solve that problem.
Okay, so, but if for whatever reason, you guys, if your table seems like we've gotten some comments that this side of the table is too high, it's not flush, or it doesn't seem that it's square, give us a call. We're happy to help. We have Bill and Kevin in our service department that are just an easy phone call away, and they can walk you through. And like Paul said, we'll be having more videos coming out soon about more in-depth maintenance on the 228. That way you guys have, more tools at your disposal to help you out.
Yeah, and this side of the table does have to be higher than this side. That way your cutoff pieces aren't dragging. But
I did not know that.
It should be, right at about a millimeter's difference. So that's about 40 thousandths of an inch or less. Should be the difference between one side to the other.
And
but the table is higher.
Regular for wet and dry saws, or is that all saws in general?
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit different because we do have a rolling table, but the rolling table has to be higher than the stationary, so you're not dragged. This doesn't drag.
Makes sense.
So it's just part of how when you mix a rolling table with a stationary. So
okay, perfect. Let's turn back to this one. What questions do we have? Hi, Tony. Nice to see you. We do love you. And Dan, we love Dan too. Look, he's using his 228 right now. Could you guys make a long rail attachment? Put that one. Oh, for ripping kind of like our extension table, I'm assuming.
A long rail attachment for ripping long tile.
I mean, you didn't even touch on how big of a tile can this saw handle?
Well, really, you could cut, really long rips. For example, this is tile that I did my backsplash with, and this is about 30 inches, I think, something like that. And I was ripping these down really easy, and it's just a matter of taking this fence off. And let's talk about the other fence here. So we have the, micro adjustment fence here. And let's go up to the close-up camera. Yeah, there we go. And then, so this has that adjustability. So I can take this micro adjuster, I can pop it in to the closest dimension, and then I can take my tape measure and measure over and to get whatever dimension I want. And now I can just lock the table, and I'm coming in here, so I've got a 36-inch piece or whatever, and you can just start cutting this and push it right on through, kind of like you would with a wood saw. So,
very cool.
And like I said, I use that on my backsplash at my house.
Oh yeah, we do have that
works,
video online
it
too.
works
if you guys
really,
want
really
to see
well.
it, cut the planks.
Yep. So you can cut, really long things. Can you cut, an 8-foot something? I don't know. If you guys want to put some rollers or something to support your material, or if you had a helper or something, you might be able to do that. But you guys will figure out how to use these things in ways that we don't even know.
So another question that we get quite a bit, and it kind of follows up with Guy's other question here. When he's cutting, he sees more dust when he's cutting certain lengths or certain tile. And I know we get a lot of chips. That's what people say. It throws chips. And I made a joke earlier. You guys missed it. I said it's not a chipless saw; it's a dustless saw.
Well, let's talk about the chips because tile has glazing on it, and let's make a couple cuts. We'll go to the close-up camera, and we'll show what these chips look like. Let me put the fence back on here, and let's make a couple of cuts here. And you'll see the chips. And I've been making a few cuts. You see. I'll kind of pull a pile of cuts, little chips there. That's your chips right there. Put my safety glasses on. And that's one reason why you want to keep the dust guard down, and it's also the blade guard. So make the cut. So yeah, there's these chips. They're, and they, do add up. So I would suggest if you're working in a more sensitive area, put a, drop cloth down so you can, manage those things. But again, if these chips are creating a problem, this may not be the right saw for you. So you have to see, is wet cutting better for what you do, or is dry cutting have enough advantages that you can manage these chips? And that's really the question.
Yeah, I would think cleaning up these chips is a whole hell of a lot easier than cleaning up the big slurry mess.
Yes.
Just personal opinion.
Well, and that's what most of the contractors are finding. And one of the things while we're talking about it, these chips, it's a glazing that comes off here. So we can go to the close up here. Can you see
Yep, that's a good spot.
The edge of that cut right there? And that's a pretty decent cut. But if you do want to clean that up, and what most good craftsmen do is they have, their little polishing pad, and we have these here at IQ. You come over, you hit that, and now when you grout that, it's nice and smooth and looks really nice. So, and that's just a good craftsman technique right there. So that's the story on chips.
But with the chips, you kind of touched on the dust guard. Why is that important to have? Because I've seen some people post that they have it, off or flipped or higher or lower. Give us some tips on the dust guard.
Yeah, well, you definitely want to be wearing, your safety glasses. Just like it says on the front. We even recommend that you can wear a respirator if you're more sensitive. But the dust guard is there, one, to knock down the chips and to keep, the blade guarded. But it's also functioning as a dust guard. Let's go into the close-up camera here, and we can kind of talk about. The dust guard actually is using the air that's generated by the blade and sucking dust back in and throwing it back down behind the blade so that it is capturing more dust. That's why, if you look at the dust guard, let's go back to the front camera. This slot is pretty narrow and close to the blade, and it will rub up against the blade, especially if you're bumping it, or sometimes you're riving knife here. That's what this piece is called in the back, is the riving knife. If you've thrown it in the back of your truck or trailer or something and get that bent, it's going to rub up against there. So you got to adjust that from time to time. And that's one thing you need to look at from time to time, is taking a square and make sure that your riving knife is lined up with your blade. Very important. So
it's almost one of the tips to do when you're first setting up. Just take a quick carpenter square. What do they call it? They're called a carpenter square, right?
Yeah, or just really, you can put a tile on here.
Okay.
As a straight edge, and just make sure your riving knife is in line with it, so that it's not, and then it's not going to bind with your tile and things like that as you make that cut all the way through.
Yeah, because it seems like a good point. If you're just throwing it in the back of your trailer, that could easily just get skewed a little bit.
Yeah, that's always the thing about these types of saws, is you have to have that thin riving knife that has to, follow the cut, so it can't be very thick, and it is, vulnerable. So you have to be careful with that and make sure you're protecting it when you're transporting it.
I'm gonna throw you a curveball. This one I didn't prep you on, but we've gotten a lot of comments of people saying that we're cutting upside down or we're cutting it wrong. Is the blade spinning in a weird direction?
Weird direction? No.
I don't know.
I mean, the blade spins in a forward direction, so it's going down, and that's taking the dust down. So that's pretty. All the tabletop, benchtop tile saws, will spin in that same direction. Okay. So that's normal.
Somebody made a comment that it was upside down or something, and I was like, I don't get it. I'm ask Paul.
No, not upside down.
When in doubt, ask Paul. Okay, so we went over the biggest things were the chips and the blowouts. Another one we had was we have dual fences, which most tabletop saws do not. What happens if it's just not staying in the table? Is there a way to fix it, or what do I do?
You're talking about the fence itself?
These guys.
Yeah. So, for example, one of the things you can look at, go to the close-up camera here, this little pin here, sometimes it might be a little bit loose. This is a little Allen screw right here that can be tightened, and that's what holds that pin in place. And that's the same with the micro adjuster as well. So that's one thing that people can just be aware of. Other than that, it should, drop in to the holes and, cinch down and adjust out. It does, people look at this thing and say, I don't think see that with the other. It does rock a little bit if you push on one side or the other side, but if you're pushing solid pressure against it with your long plank, like if you're doing these long cuts, and you put good consistent pressure against it, it holds its position really well and nice and parallel to the blade. So that's it's a different concept, so it takes a little bit getting used to, and it's a tool, and you got to learn how to use the tool and be effective with it, just like any other tool.
Perfect. Let's talk about maintenance. I know we're going to do another video coming up that kind of deep dives a little bit more. But for people, so that they can get prepared, what does the yearly maintenance look like on this saw? Well,
you definitely, if you're using it, pretty daily, you want to change that filter, and that's just as simple as following the instructions, popping the filter out, getting a new one, and popping a new filter in it.
Okay.
You can check your brushes on the motor. You definitely want to change the brushes. We encourage you to do it every year. That way, you don't ever have to worry about it. Yeah. But if you're not using it that much, check it every 2 years and try to change your brushes at least every 2 years. But it's good to check it every year.
In this bad one?
Yeah, the dust guard depend on how it's doing, how much it has rubbed up against the blade. You can replace that as well, because it is a wear item. It is going to touch the blade. You when you're making cuts, sometimes you push it over, and sometimes your riving knife is not exactly in the right place. But it is a wear item as well. So. But really, filter, your brushes on your motor, and then your dust guard are the three things that can wear, and you can check those.
Kind of a little maintenance, a little out of the box. Oh, you have another?
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention is, on the table itself, we'll flip this over. This is also it's called a Delrin wear pad here, and this is just a real slippery plastic piece, and that's what wears on top of this rail right here, and that's how we keep that profile nice and low. That is also a wear piece, So if you see your table getting maybe a little bit chunky, one thing to do is you want to clean out this area and keep your chunks out of there and keep that clean. And then the other thing is, my maintenance man, Bill, the service manager, said, it's nice to have this little Scotch Brite stuff. This is really nice for kind of cleaning up your rails. Works really good.
And quick tip for all the IQ saws.
Yeah. That
is a go-to cleaning supply. This and a Swiffer.
Yep. So just, that rail right there, it's a little plastic piece that, you loosen one little screw here and it slides out and you slide a new one in. So that's another wear piece. And you can always keep an eye on your wheels and stuff, but they should last quite a while.
And I just love when you flip the rolling tables over because I feel like they look so badass. I mean, that's an intense rolling table.
Really? You like that, huh?
Yeah. Although I like the 244 one. You know me, I like to take photos of stuff. Anyway, getting off topic. My question for you before we talked about rolling tables was kind of a mix of maintenance and out of the box. We have a lot of contractors who are super excited. They get it. They go to cut, and their first cut is crap. Why?
Yeah, and that's, just like the quick tips guide says, you need to make 10, 15, maybe even 20 cuts. And that's really opening up your diamond blade, exposing the diamond to that type of material, and that's going to get smoothed out. The more you cut with the machine, the smoother it gets, and the blade really blends into the material you're cutting. Now, when you start switching materials, let's say you go from something that's harder to softer, and that's when your blade is kind of adjusting. The diamond exposure is kind of changing as it adapts to that new material, and that's when a dressing stone really comes in handy to dress the blade, open up the diamonds. And what that does, the dressing stone opens up, or kind of sands back this metal matrix here, and then opens up and exposes fresh diamond. Yeah, so this is what the dressing stone looks like.
Do you think it's worth doing a quick?
Yeah, we can do a quick.
I'm going to use the close-up camera. I'll take this one back because it goes with this box.
Dress the blade real quick here. So back to our close-up camera here. We'll slow the blade down, and I'm sure you can't see it, but what I did is I just kind of sanded back that metal matrix. There's chunks of diamond that are in that blade. If you run your finger on it, you can feel those chunks of diamond. So I expose those chunks of diamond, and that's what's doing your cutting for you. That's what's cutting through the tile. The metal matrix just holds the chunks of diamond in place so they can do the cutting. So you want to have nice exposed diamond to have nice smooth cuts.
And if you guys want more in-depth information on blades, definitely check out our YouTube channel or our Instagram reels because we do a lot of live videos about blades. Seems to be the most asked about topic. But we do some stuff where we take a microscope and we get really up close with those diamonds. So definitely check that out. Next question. What was my next question? Evelyn, do you remember my next question? Yes, back to blades. How do I know which blade to use for the material? Like, how do I know to go combo versus hard material? Especially if I'm on a job site, like, what do I do?
Yeah, if you're on a job site, I would recommend people have, comes with a combination blade. I would tell them, when you pick up the machine, just go ahead and get the hard material blade and keep those with you. And that way you have them. Like we were talking about, the hard material blade is really good for porcelain, hard porcelains. If you're getting into doing some granite, especially like black granite, you get some of these really hard stones. This is definitely a better blade to use. When you're more on the softer side or combination, the orange combination blade is what you want to stick with. But you need to cut a few samples and make sure you're getting the results that you want that are acceptable, and that's the blade you want to use. So,
what about you went over the hand pads? I don't know if you want to just touch back on those a little bit and talk about if you are getting chipping, what do we do?
If we are getting chipping
on your side.
Yes, it's over here. Yeah, so I mean, tile saws, wet or dry, are going to chip. Depending on the type of tile you're using, cheaper tile seems to chip more than more expensive. Nicer porcelain seems to hold its edge better. But even nicer porcelain, putting kind of that factory edge back on it with a dressing stone is just great craftsmanship. So that's something that you want to get in the habit of doing no matter what saw you're using. It's just, it shows that you have pride in your work.
So we have Guy on YouTube asking, what would the hard material blade not be good for? He uses the hard material blade exclusively.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going, for example, marble, it would not be good for marble. It would not be good for some of the softer porcelains like subway tiles. That's pretty soft material. That's where your combo blade is going to be better. And we are actually working, we have a marble blade for the 244, which is the new blue blade. That's our 10-inch for the 244. And we're working on the marble blade for the 7-inch for the 228 as well. So that'll be coming out. And that'll be for your softer travertines and marble and things.
Should I ask the most, our favorite question of all time when it comes to our tile saws?
Will it cut glass?
Will it cut glass?
It will cut glass, but your experience and the results are very varied. Will vary, yes. So we don't have a glass cutting blade. We are still working on glass cutting blades for all the machines.
Why is it been such a challenge?
One of the biggest things is glass varies. The quality of glass, the brittleness of glass, it depends on where it comes from in the world. And so having one blade that can cut all that variety of types of glass is just very, very difficult. So that's one thing.
Okay.
Glass is difficult. Glass also, they're putting, some special like foils on the back. They're putting paints and so it's really tough to get something that will cut through that, and give a nice result. And you guys even see it with wet cutting saws. Glass is difficult. Yes. And some glass is just almost impossible to cut wet, dry, or with anything. So it just varies so much, and it is a real challenge.
So we've talked about some of the accessories, blades and the hand pads. But is there anything new coming out, wink, wink, for the 228?
Yeah.
That was my attempt at winking. Okay. I apologize. That was an absolute failure.
That was a poor attempt at winking. Yeah, so one of the things that is not available yet, but we do have our miter table, and this is actually, we're in the final stages. We got some little tweaks to do to it. But basically what it does is it allows you to set this on the table surface. You lock it down kind of like one of the other fences, and then you can lift this side up like here.
So cool.
And you set that, so that's in your 22.5 position, and then your 45-degree position right there. And it just gives you kind of a guide. Nothing clamps down to it or anything, but
we could put our fences in there, right?
Yes, we can put our fences in this location, but you're really going to have to hold it to make your cuts.
Okay.
Let me get a piece of smaller tile here. Well, let's do the big one. So you can see, you just hold this on the side here, and you're going to push your cut through to put your miters on it. If you want to do, a reverse miter, like that, you just turn it upside down. So it just gives you the option, so you're not freehanding, to do your bevel and miter cuts.
So when can contractors expect to kind of see that hit the market?
Yeah, it's really, like I said, we're just getting ready to go into production. We're doing some final little tweaks with it here. So it's, it's going to be 60 to 90 days, and then it'll be available. So
noted, because it's not on my project list yet.
Yep.
Got it. So that'll be on my desk waiting.
It will. We're going to need a box, and you're going to...
And the manual that nobody reads? Perfect. Well, I think that answers all of our questions that we get from you guys the most. Again, if you have more, definitely reach out to us. Just a full recap. If you notice that your table is a little bit high or a little out of square, you can adjust it. There's a couple screws on the back, and we will go through with Bill and Paul later on and do another video about how to do that. But in the meantime, go ahead and you can give us a call, and we'll connect you with our service team. If you see that it's throwing an excess amount of chips at you, give us a call, and we'll try to help you out. Again, it's dustless, not dust-free, 99.5% of the dust captured. with this machine.
Yeah, and before we leave that sub, let's go to the close-up camera, because so we made, a handful of cuts here. Basically, you guys have seen I made a few cuts before, and I'll just push these chips over into my hand here. So that's the amount of chips that we generated by those, few cuts. So there's a fair amount of chips. So you're definitely going to want to put a drop cloth down if that's you're in a more sensitive area, but that's normal. So it's nothing to be alarmed about. But you definitely want to protect your eyes against that, because with the dust guard, blade guard down, they're falling down in this area. That's what it's doing. It's doing its job, but you want to protect your eyes. But the good news is this is not respirable. This is not dust. This is chips, and it's usually just the glazing that's coming off. So.
Got it. That was a pretty good demonstration like that. And last but not least, be putting pressure on the end of your cut. I think that's pretty much going to solve the majority of issues that we've heard so far.
Yeah, and you guys need to experiment a little bit, get comfortable with it, the cutting speed, putting that pressure, different types of tile are more delicate. Some are more susceptible to blowing out on the backside. And that's the same with wet saws. You got to, learn a little bit of a technique. And again, this is kind of a new tool to you guys. So you got to spend the time, learn some, little tips and tricks. There's a great community out there in social media you guys can tap into if you're having issues. And there's a lot of people out there that love the machine and can help you out as well. So, or you can give us a call here and we can help out.
Yeah, definitely give us a call. We have a customer service team that is awesome. And if they can't help, our service team can help. We're here for you guys. We want you to be successful with this tool. So, we're here for you. But I think that's it. That wraps up all of our questions. Thank you guys for joining us. If you guys missed the whole show, we will be going again live this afternoon on Instagram. So you can follow us there as well. And if not, then we'll see you next week on our next live.
And I think this is going to be recorded and also put on our YouTube channel. So this is a great one. If you didn't catch everything, you want to go back and review it, you can do that. So
good question. Happy Labor Day to you too, Tony. But one last question before we sign off, because I asked this when we first started designing this. Will it have a case or a cover ever?
Not at this time.
To be determined.
Yeah,
I'll keep working on it, guy. I know some people here. But I think that's it. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you, and we will see you next week.
All right. Thanks, everyone.